All right. Nice turnout. Thanks for coming, everybody. We are gathered here today to speak about the global impact that China has had on the entertainment industry, specifically with reference to sports and music, where our experts have had most experience. Re-entering the Dragon. A cheeky title, to be sure, but the fact that that resonates so well with so many of you speaks directly to the point of the panel. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest. I guess he kind of already did that, but we have Kevin Fu, Greater China RCA Managing Director, Benjamin Wahl, the head of East Asia for Borussia Dortmund, BVB, if you're more familiar with the acronyms there, and Dorcas Chiu, who is the head of Greater China as well, or Territory Director, excuse me, for Greater China for ONErpm. Let's take it back to the roots here real fast. When we're talking about China and how everything has been impacted by that, you want to look to the past to see the future and all that kind of stuff. So in terms of, the history, let's start with you, Kevin. How would you say that historically, and we don't need to get into the modern day era quite yet, but taking it back to the roots, as I said, how has China been influential in entertainment, music, maybe?
Right. I mean, I'm just gonna hazard a guess here because we're talking about ancient history.
Let's go with it.
Ancient history.
I like it.
So I did a little bit of research before coming on for this, and I read that in China, music can be dated back to the 7,000 BC, 7,000 to 8,000 BC, where
a long time.
Yeah, that's a long time ago, where they discovered a bone flute, right, from the Neolithic era, and I'm born and bred from Singapore. I grew up here, and for a good part of my life, I feel that my Chinese friends always tell me that the Chinese invented the pentatonic scale, right? The do, re, mi, sol, la, everything in Chinese music comes out from there, and I still cling to that fact. So yeah, China has been influencing music for centuries, or thousands of years.
Yeah, if you think about the butterfly effect, having a butterfly flap its wings, how about the pentatonic scale with music? That's certainly a mark on history to be sure. So then, Ben, what about yourself? Let's take it to a sports angle.
Well, first of all, thanks for the invitation, Stephen. Good to be here with you guys. Well, I think the philosophy of sports in China was for many, many centuries talking about to train your mind, to be in balance with the nature, with your body. So I would say it was more an art than a competition until the missionaries roughly 300 years ago came to China and brought those modern sports, what we call nowadays, to China. But still talking about football, my English friends in that room won't like me for that sentence, but actually football was invented in China. We have a literacy 2nd century BC about football, having proper drawings of a football. We have a god of football, Gaucho, in the Song dynasty, I guess. So yeah, China had an impact on sports. And of course, we know martial arts, kung fu, military-related sports, archery, shooting, maybe kung fu as well. So yeah, China always had an impact on sports for sure.
Hooligans, save your comments and heckles for the question and answer session if we have some time to get to it later. And then yourself, Dorcas, let's more music stuff. Anything else?
I think there's something called the yellow bell theory. It's like the first, I think, tonal system that came out of the bamboo flute, I think 17th, 11th BCE. I think for all the historians out here, which I'm assuming not a lot of us are, I think that's quite an interesting fact, yeah.
I got something for the next Outburst game or something like that.
Maybe
right?
Wikipedia.
A little bit of trivia for you guys while we're going through it. So all right. So obviously, it has had, it's got a lot of history, and throughout that, it has made an impact on the global industry as we know it today. How are you seeing that translate? Let's start with with Dorcas. Is China still making an impact on the global sports and entertainment music industry, and how so?
If I said no, would I be kicked off of this panel? No, of course it is. I think the recent discussions a lot of people were having in the music industry is virality versus artist development. And I think we see sort of the global expansion of ByteDance through TikTok and Douyin. And that is something that's intrinsically apparent nowadays if we're talking about re-entering in the current world. We see in China that there's a very close relationship between virality and artist development. We see viral artists having those pop-off moments, those kind of like those viral tracks be able to develop their careers into a financially sustainable model. And we see that when they go into longer form content. So from those viral moments, how are they able to then utilize it into longer form content like festivals, concerts, reality shows? So I think for China, if we're looking into that, that has been very important in how virality and artist development comes together. So I think that's something that China is impacting in the current world, because right now we do see viral artists going into full-fledged, fully developed international household names.
Yeah, certainly with the rise of short video and the virality within, you see a lot of the, I don't want to say the power being taken out of the editorial of a lot of these platforms, but it's certainly another force that is affecting that, and that is something that's actually started with ByteDance and China, right?
Yeah, and developing artists are also seeking those kind of viral moments, and ByteDance having actual programs to support that, and music programs encouraging artists to explore their viral moments, their viral songs. I think it's increasingly important for distribution partners, labels, and artists and managers to be aware of is how do we utilize these moments into a longer term kind of career. And that goes for international artists wanting to go into China as well. It's like you have that viral hit, so then what comes next, right?
Absolutely. A lot of impacts from that entire sphere. The whole Douyin short video, viral video, challenges, all of these things are really shaking up the industry, and even I think to a degree shortening the lengths of songs in some cases, and all of these kinds of things. And so then let's take it into sports. Ben, where would you see the global impact being translated in sports today?
Well, starting off with football, everyone might be aware we still got that massive plan to be a world football powerhouse by 2050 by the Chinese government. So I think the impact in that scenario is that they're going to build 70,000 football pitches until 2025. Massive infrastructure project again. 50 million pupils are supposed to play football by 2030. And they want to be, by 2050, a world football recognized nation. So in terms of infrastructure, in terms of big projects, I think in football that's going to shape the world. We can talk about stadiums in a bit as well. And then in the global sports industry, we had the Olympic Games a couple years ago when basically the world was standing still, but China executed those. Again, with a massive infrastructure project, reshaping the landscape there, building brand new hotels, transportation systems. So when it comes to infrastructure and technology, I think China is still within the top nations to build, to shape the sports world.
Yeah, definitely. You touched on the stadiums. Maybe now might be a good time to elaborate on it, actually. How do you see China and their stadiums impacting the world today?
I've seen a couple years ago fantastic drawings and infrastructure projects in China about new stadiums. You know those mixed zones where the players come out of their cabins inside of the stadium, the mixed zone where they come together and then walking through that hall into the stadiums. I've seen concepts which are going to be realized now in Europe, that you have in those mixed zones areas for fans behind the glass wall to be very close to that game, to be with those teams in that moment. I think that's goosebumps for every football fan, or maybe in every sports, right? To be at that moment with the players. And that's something I've seen the first time in China for stadium management, and that has an impact right now for new stadiums which will be built in Europe.
That's an interesting perspective. It kind of reminds me of some of the clubs that are out in China as well, and just how much money they throw into the production out there. You know, it's real top level stuff, and it's so prevalent. But Kevin, yourself, how are you seeing China in the modern era impact the entertainment industry, maybe music on a global level?
Right. If you're talking about the modern era, I mean, recorded music, in the last 10 years has been phenomenal to growth, right? It's a global thing. But some fast facts about China in the last, 3 or 4 years. In 2021, I think China just went past the $1 billion mark as a music market. And then in 2022, for the first time, it became a top 5 market, hopping over France at a point of time. And the first half of this year, I think we see that China has hopped over Germany as the 4th largest recorded music market in the world as of now. So I think one of the key things that has been fueling this growth is really the macro environment. I think a lot of what Dorcas was talking about, that if you go into the nitty-gritty and seeing how technology has been used for the music, for the artists or the creative to kind of reach their target audience. I think one of the great things about the China ecosystem is how frictionless it is, especially within that super app system. I mean, the last couple of days, Sony had the opportunity to kind of speak with some of our partners and just to hear what their struggles are on the ground. And sometimes it's things as real as just, the payment system, like how do you get, consumers to pay for the service. But within China, it's such a frictionless, I keep using the word frictionless system because I was blown away. I mean, when I first started going to China and seeing how everything, it's so easy, right? So it's been a test bed for a lot of, I guess, different technologies, not just for the audience to receive entertainment, but from there then to go on to e-commerce purchases, or how do you really support your idol or or the artist that you are following. So I think it's in that kind of ecosystem that we are seeing then things that are being test bedded within China that's now translating to other global platforms as well, and that's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. What is it? The WeChat Pay, the Zhifubao or the Alipay or whatever it's called. I mean, it's ubiquitous out there. It's just everywhere. And so, you even see that in certain online transactions. I don't know if we want to talk about that, the types of online transactions quite yet, but fair enough. Okay, and so then I guess kind of, with yourselves, right, and what you're doing. I want to make sure that we have some time to get to know the speakers a little bit and how they're making an impact. So, Kevin, you want to talk about sort of what your organization does and is doing, and how you're making an impact with China globally?
Right. So, first and foremost, with this opportunity of talking with myself, right? So I really started out here in Singapore as a struggling musician, producer, trying to make it work in a small market like this. Many people in the room who know me from my time in Singapore know that I've dedicated a big part of my life trying to export artists from this part of the world to other places. So I think in my time with Sony Music, it's been really similar. It's really about the artists first, creators. And I think the most amazing thing about the China market, it's incredibly huge. We have talent coming from the smallest villages to the top huge metropolises in the tier 1 cities. So Sony Music as a whole and RCA, the label that I get to lead with a great team. I know my general manager Ruth is here today as well. We have been working with artists of all stages of their careers, from brand new artists to superstars as well. So in the last couple of years, we have done work with young artists like, we just launched this artist called Jasmine Yen, super talented 19-year-old dancer, singer, made for TikTok and Douyin. And it just helps also that her father is superstar Donnie Yen, martial arts icon from Asia. We have been also working with a brand new co-signing. His name is Ren Kai, a kid that grew up in Shanghai and spent his teenage formative years in Ecuador. And he speaks three languages, extremely fluently: Spanish, English, and Chinese. So we're working, with him and Sony Music Latin. He has been releasing music in Spanish, and it's already a household name in Ecuador. So now we're trying to take that and translate that over to his childhood home base of Shanghai, and developing him for the China market as well. I think these are just a couple examples, but we want to continue working with these talents that we are finding that can cross borders, that make sense within the ecosystem of China, but also in other regions as well. So it's always about artists first and their music. We believe in empowering, pushing, marketing, and then protecting the artists that we work with.
That's great. Yeah. What was the name of the artist that spent time in Ecuador again?
Ren Kai.
Ren Kai.
Yeah. So in Ecuador, everybody calls him Ren.
Okay.
Right, but his Chinese name Ren Kai.
Got it.
It's his real name.
Geez, so Mandarin and Spanish. Someone once told me that if you can speak Mandarin, Spanish, and English, you can talk to 1 in every 3 people in the world. You guys got a lot going for him.
That's the first thing I said to him when I met him. You've got it made. You can pick up girls anywhere in the world.
It's a superpower. English too or no?
English. Yeah.
English too. Watch that space. All right. Cool. What about Ben? Ben, you got the question. Run with it.
Yeah, that's a tough question for Borussia Dortmund, especially at a conference where everything is bigger, better, glamorous, and shiny, and new technology. Why? Because our club considers itself as a very traditional football club. We are actually on purpose not stepping into this e-football part heavily. We always say we got to smell the grass at Borussia Dortmund. And that's also our approach in China. A little different probably, but we think that there are so many football clubs out there trying to commercialize in Asia. What you might know about Borussia Dortmund, that we are one of the most intense football clubs. You might have seen our stadium, highest attendance worldwide in football. More than 80,000 people are coming every game day to that stadium. The black and yellow wall, 25,000 people are standing there. And we said it doesn't make sense for us to sell IP rights and picture rights like many other clubs. We said we got to bring that football feeling to Asia. So we're organizing a lot of fan events, traveling every other weekend to those cities, play football with the fans, watch the games together, having a beer, celebrate victories. But we also lose a lot recently, but that belongs to football. But that's our approach. Does it has an impact on China? I think we know our position, right? There are such huge, big clubs in the world of football. But it lights up my football heart when I see, for example, Chengdu recently. They built a brand new stadium, 50,000 people, impossible to get tickets. It's always sold out. We got a club in Xi'an, went bankrupt, like many other clubs. But what happened is that the people of Xi'an founded like a stock thing to refinance that club and to bring it alive again. So we can see that football feeling everywhere and more in China. Maybe a little bits of peace we could contribute to that, but that's our approach from BVB and our impact, I would say, in Asia.
Yeah, well, I think certainly a lot of us can learn from that approach. What you've been doing in China with the local communities and the fan meetups, and I think I even saw a bus that had all black and yellow with the club on the side and stuff like that. Like that's some really cool.
Tourist buses in Shanghai are red, and we hate
guerrilla
color
marketing.
red, so we painted them for a while black and yellow.
Yeah. Do a little double-decker bus party with your club mates or whatever it might be. That gets me right in the heart. A little shameless plug, I used to throw double-decker bus parties all over Shanghai, and he's in Shanghai, so it gets me in the feels. But beyond that, I do think that the community growth that you guys have been doing is really some impressive stuff, and you certainly have grown tremendously in your time out there. It's commendable. And then yourself, Dorcas, tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm very lucky that ONErpm decided to, take on the beast that is Greater China. So we've been here in the territory for only 6 months, but we've been really trying to get in there and trying to see where everyone's feelings towards music distribution. So we purely do music distribution, but I think what we do is we bring in the transparency of data, transparency of financial reports to artists, and being quite clear about exactly what we're doing with our artists, how we're developing them, and how we're helping them grow. So it's a little bit like music distribution plus a little bit of label services involved in it, so artist developments as well. And very similar to Kevin, I think we're looking into cross-collaboration, cross-regional. We're very strong with our regional, I think, artist development. We've been signing artists that are not just from one certain identity or one certain nationhood. So we've signing artists that are like Taiwanese Americans or Asian Canadians. We recently helped with a Singaporean Malaysian Canadian go from 0 streams to 10 million streams on his first track. So virality with artist development, how do we take him to the next level now? How do we bring him into China now? So hopefully that's something that we bring to the table. It's not just like attacking a certain dominant culture and trying to force, C-pop or Mando pop or, canto pop down someone's throats or like down to another market. But we're looking at balances of power and balances of cross collaborations. How do we balance out? Because we live in a globalized world. Like I myself, I'm Canadian, but I grew up in Hong Kong, I grew up in Beijing. So a lot of my identity is tied into these, and we see that in our artists every single day, the new artists that we're bringing in. So hopefully that's something that we bring to the table. We're just a distribution company, but we're hoping that our artists find their worth through this giant network, through this incredible international kind of connections everywhere. Yeah.
You guys are even bringing some of them through here, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, so if you're all interested, we do have a showcase of all of our talents on Wednesday night, 9 p.m. at Yang Club. If you look up ONErpm APAC on Instagram, you can find all of our details there. We brought, I think, over 8 artists from all around the world. It's no small feat. They're all developing artists. Their music ranges from like R&B, hip hop to electronic. So we're very excited to have them here, and it's like a tiny family throwing like a really big party. So we hope to see everyone out there.
Nice. All right. Well, yep, you heard it here first. Wednesday night, it's the place to be. And so then let's move forward into the future. What do you see China's role in shaping the entertainment industry with music, with sports, and whatever else it may be? Going forward with some of this next gen stuff. Let's start with Dorcas.
So I think everyone's talking about AI this year. So last year it was, I think a little bit this year as well, about Web3 and NFTs. But I think the hot topic of this year is really AI and the power of AI in music. I think for China, if we're relating the topic back to China, we've seen China do some crazy AI stuff from like 5-10 years ago, whether it's like AI avatars, AI music, algorithms, streaming, all of that related kind of data visualization and digital tools. I think for China, like last year, Tencent had AI music tracks that went over 100 million streams, that went viral. NetEase just released their newest AI avatar that does Chinese traditional music mixed in a very modern context. So revitalizing something that has never been done before and then putting it into the modern concept has been quite powerful and quite exciting to see. And I think actually, I'll bring up this as an example because I think it's so worth bringing up is Chen Shani, so Sandy Chan, Chen Shani 老师 from Taiwan. She prompted the AI to write in the style of her own writing, of her own music, great producing, and she wrote the lyrics herself, and she used AI to sing it in her voice. So, and after that project, she came back and she said that if we could make music more accessible, less time, and with more people involved, like why aren't we using it as a tool? So I think a lot of musicians are afraid that AI will break something of theirs or will take something away from them. But I think a lot of Chinese artists, Greater China artists, they are seeing it as a tool that they can utilize. And with NetEase coming in with a program that helps that, they're doing a music program that uses AI to write. I think things like that we're seeing more and more of, and we live in a world where we're embracing technology rather than running away from it. And hopefully in the future with AI and blockchain, we're able to track some of those copyright problems and we're able to fingerprint some of that. And in Taiwan, of course, we have Our Song, which is a great NFT platform that does beat making and that uses blockchain to help artists write. So yeah, and I think maybe that is the future. Maybe in the future, the West or everyone in this room will start thinking of AI and NFTs as tools rather than barriers to creating music and sharing music.
Yeah, certainly. It's wild to see. I always compare it to kind of an ocean versus a lagoon and how different things evolve within their own isolated environments. And so you have a different ecosystem over there and regulations and whatnot. And these sort of allow for different I guess, progressions of technology, right? And even the needs therein to be answered. And so AI is no exception. What about yourself, Ben?
I see three areas for a big impact from China on sports. It's data, technology, and infrastructure. It's actually not on the pitch yet. A lot of investment into grassroots and youth football, but still the level is not there where the Chinese wish to be. I think it's a steady growth, but still I don't see a big impact, let's say, within the next 10 years on the pitch. But with those three other areas, we touched already the infrastructure projects, fantastic stadiums, designs, that's definitely upcoming. And then for data and technology, as I said, I'm not a big fan of just transporting a football game into a virtual world, augmented reality. But what I could think of and see, for example, in esports is that for former games, when we won a title 12 years ago, that you able or enable the fan to real life and to experience that game most authentic again. That's something I can see is happening in esports and in the metaverse already. And if we transform this then into football, I'm convinced the technology which will come out of China.
I'm waiting for it. That sounds awesome. Can you imagine? What about yourself, Kevin? How do you see it going forward?
Yep, I guess I was sharing about the growth of the China market until present, right? Now, if we use kind of like the similar facts and figures and the growth rates, we are probably expecting the China market to go, past the UK within the next couple of years, the size of the market, and potentially even outpacing Japan in the next 5 to 6 years. So China is really going to be one of the top 2 recorded music markets in the world in the next decade. And I think what's exciting about that is the fact that, we are already seeing global artists looking to break in China. And I think it's great that the Sony Music team in the last couple of years have done that. We have examples like Thai artist Hong Thuy Linh and her Sitin, dance remix that blew up on Douyin, and then how that translated to a lot of the other regions as well. Very recently, the Sony Music China team also broke Ari Abdul, right, with her song Baby Doll, also on short form video, and how now that's translating slowly to ex-China markets. So I believe that's going to happen more and more so, because it is one of the biggest markets in the world. If you do something within the market, you can break artists, you can break music there, and it will translate to other parts of the world. Now, with regards to, future technologies and everything, I'm going to say something that's really unsexy here, right? Which is, I was super excited about catching Travis Scott on his Fortnite concert. And the only way I was able to access it is because I have kids who are teens, right? So they have their Fortnite accounts and they went in and, I joined them. And I felt like this is nothing like experiencing Travis Scott in real life, but that's me, right? So I feel that the future is going to be interesting. Right? Like with Web 3.0 being developed, it wasn't the death of Web 1.0. I still go to Wikipedia to read, articles all the time, right? I still use Web 1.0. I still use Web 2.0, and there will be a space for 3.0 as well. So I believe that if we went back to the crux of the matter, the future would have lots of technologies to help connect creatives and artists to fans. Our responsibility is to continue to empower our creatives, right? And how then, maybe in the 80s and 90s it's about that great music video, right? And it's long form and it was horizontal. Now maybe, to get the same kind of emotional connection, it's a vertical 30-second video. But it's still about the creative or the artist. How do we connect them to the fans? And then how do we create sustainable careers around these creatives? So I feel the future will be much the same as what's today. It's just about embracing new technologies, protecting the rights of our artists, using these technologies as creative tools, and not be afraid of change. So we are excited, and we hope that we'll march forward into the future and embrace all different ways of consuming music.
Those sound like great marching orders to me. So I think we're going to wrap it up with that. Of course, our speakers will be around the conference, out having a coffee and whatnot. You can come up to them and ask them any questions that you like. But I think I'm going to hand it off to Sean. So here we go.
Thanks very much, Stephen and Dorcas.